Hi, everybody, and welcome to the last episode of this season of It's Not Just Number. Time flies, and it's my great pleasure to have, as usual, Anna in front of me
Hi.
since this is online. And our guest this week is Maarten de Witte.
Hi.
And we will finish this year with a topic that we tried to cover for, at this point, 1.5 years, which made me realize how busy is the schedule of teachers. And today we are going to talk about teaching mathematics in school, what it's like, and what are the challenges, what are the fun parts, and everything around what the job of a mathematician is like as a teacher. So Martin, thank you so much for coming here. At the beginning of our episode, we tried to get to know our guests, and so the first question I would like to ask you is, can you tell us a bit who you are and what drove you into mathematics?
I'm Maarten, or Mr. de Witte for my students. I'm 26 years old and I'm a high school mathematics teacher. And I basically got into mathematics because I really enjoyed the course in high school, and teaching is kind of in my family, or working at schools is kind of in my family. So I thought, well, why not make a combination out of those two and study mathematics to see if teaching actually is something that I enjoy, and to see if I'm capable of teaching, because it's a big challenge. Fast forward almost 10 years and then here we are.
To know for the listeners that it's not just school but high school in the Netherlands, and that it's specifically for Dutch schools, which might be totally different from schools in other countries.
So what's the structure here? How does it work?
So the whole education system is primary schools until ages 12, basically, and then you, with your parents and your primary school teachers, make a decision as to what level is suitable for you. And then there is basically a 4-year track, a 5-year track, and a 6-year track, increasing in, well, difficulty. Or I'm not really sure what the right word would be, but yeah. Probably difficulty. Then that's what high school is. So it's either 4, 5, or 6 years, and based on your level, you can go to a University of Applied Sciences, or like a real university, or MBO. I don't know what the English equivalent.
I guess
Yeah,
college
college,
for
I
the
guess.
American listeners.
So based on the level you follow, you can continue studying after that. And right now I'm teaching a little bit of everything, not each and every class and not each and every level, but some of this, some of that. So basically I'm teaching the 13-year-olds and the 18-year-olds, and some in between.
So I understood from our conversation before this recording that you're working full time, which would be 40 hours.
Yeah, we don't count our hours in hours. We count them in FTEs. So it's 1.0 FTE, which it means 5 days. Yeah, 40 hours is not really what a real teaching job is like, because that's just the time you're in school. But then there's everything in preparation and administration after, which comes to a lot more than 40 hours.
I
So
see.
how many classes do you teach if you, well, on paper you work 40 hours, but I can imagine that it would be much more.
Yeah, there's 8 classes that are currently my responsibility, and only one of them is the exam, the school leaving class. So that means that right now the exams have been finished. Some are doing their resits this week, so good luck to them. But so I have 7 classes left that I was teaching until last week. Now it's test week, so we've had our final lessons. And after this, there will be holidays soon, which everyone is looking forward to.
Let me take a step back. So you were our student, right, at some point in the past?
Was, yeah.
And we discussed it earlier. So he's a good friend of Sven, which you have listened to if you did listen to our episode on the aftermath. And if you did not, I recommend you to go back and listen to that episode. So after this shameless advertising, let me go back. So how did you decide to study mathematics here with us, and what was during your study that makes you steer toward becoming a teacher? Was there something or somebody in particular that made you take this decision?
In a way, yes. I come from a family that does a lot of jobs in schools, either teaching or administrative tasks, or they're all connected to various levels of school. That's primary school and high school as well. And so I always, you hear the stories, and you hear, well, I enjoyed high school very much, so I thought it would be a fun place to work. But I never knew if that would be a very suitable job for me, because I really didn't like presenting that much, but I did think it would be cool to be a teacher. So I had the option to either follow studies that would teach me how to be a teacher, or I could do pure mathematics and then do the minor for education and see if it's actually suitable for me and if I enjoy it. And I can always back out if it's not for me, having the advantage that I would have a bachelor of mathematics, which would open a lot of doors to various masters or jobs after. And then I did that internship in my minor, and I completed that, and they said, well, you could definitely be a teacher for the lower level, the first 3 years of high school, but we think you're also very suitable for the higher levels. And so we discussed that, and I had it in mind already to do the master's in education as well, which I did after. And then I had the internship at my current school and my current job, which followed through to becoming a real teacher, not to make fun of interns, but the real thing. I got that after completing the internship, because there was an opportunity with a colleague who retired, and we had to fill those hours. So there I was, right place and right time, I guess.
That's
you
quite
need that
impressive.
bit of luck, right?
Yeah, it was a bit of luck and a bit of opportunism.
I'm wondering then, if you go back to your own time at high school, which was fun, you said, did you have a good example? What type of mathematics teacher did you have?
Well, I really hope he doesn't listen to this, but I had the I had the stereotype, the older, almost retired teacher, and he was a great teacher, because he made us do the work, and put in the hours, and he really drilled us, to really get the most out of our capabilities. I'm not sure if that's the right word.
Didactic.
Didactical,
pedagogy,
I guess
or
it is.
didactic.
But the didactical was great, but he wasn't really. I don't consider him available for personal problems or anything like that. And I do think that that's a job as a teacher as well. Be available and be approachable for your students. Also, just for mathematical questions, like, he was available, but you were kind of scared of him, and kind of he kind of made you feel insecure, even though he really did the best to get everything out of it.
Do you think that this might be a reflection of times changing? Like that the way you learn to become a teacher is different, the way you learn now to become a teacher, and somehow the emphasis was different, and the role models perhaps were different, or do you think it's just personality?
No, I think you're right that times change and education changes as well. So the emphasis is really on different aspects, and also the curriculum is constantly changing, and topics get taught, and then they will not be taught for a couple of years, and then they will bring them back, and it changes the whole time. But also I think his role model would have been someone who might even have been more strict than that, or more serious. And I don't know if he would be suited to start his teaching career in this day and age. So that's definitely a change of the times.
Also related to this, I'd like to come back to something you mentioned earlier. You said, you did your internship, and before that you had an idea of what it means to be a good teacher, and then you said this has changed completely throughout your internships and then when you became a teacher. So I'm really curious to understand.
Mm-hmm.
What was your impression at first, and how it changed throughout the year until you became a teacher? And what's your impression now?
So when I started, I thought teaching would basically be completing your lessons and do the grading and completing that, and then that's your job. And then you realize there's meetings almost every week with various groups. That's either all of your colleagues from the same level or just the mathematics teachers, and also meetings outside of that, like that are not mathematics or lesson related at all, which I had no idea, because they don't discuss the meetings with us students. As students have nothing to do with that, so you don't discuss that with your students. So that was an eye-opener. And then I went to really teach, and you see, as you progress through the years, you improve yourself, and you see that you're capable of, having personal conversations with your students. You notice that students are able to approach you, and they share their personal problems with you, and you try to help them in the best way you can. And that's not something that, I'm a very lucky kid because I never had any problems whatsoever. So I never had to even think about that. So I didn't consider it part of my job until it actually happened to me, and I was like, okay, well, now what? What am I gonna do, and how am I gonna help these students? And sometimes it's enough to just listen, and sometimes you need immediate action, and you need to find the right people or the right colleagues that can help you in those times. But that's not something you consider during any internship or any bachelor or master's or whatever. It's just, there's some parts that are just undiscovered for certain students.
So do you think that in this day and age you can be a good teacher without forming this or having this personal connection with students?
Yes, you can definitely be a good teacher, but to be a successful school, you need to have teachers that are available to the students for personal problems. Because if you have 100 good teachers, but none of them care about the students' well-being on an emotional level, then you're gonna fail, because all the students will drop out because they're not happy and they're not in the right place and they can't focus on learning. And the students need to be have to put their problems aside before they can actually learn anything. So with just good teachers that understand their subjects, that's not going to be enough.
This is maybe a bridge for me to discuss the difference between graduating from a high school and then going into university, because all of a sudden you're one of, 100 or maybe more students, and there's no personal connection at all. How did you enjoy your time studying mathematics in the bachelor?
It was a lot of hard work, which is also, that's always what comes with mathematics. That's for high school and that's for university as well. I think if you look at the standard mathematics student, they're maybe a bit, what's the word? It's like solitaire? Is it like lone? It's not lonely, but lonely sounds so negative.
Solitary, yeah, you have the right word.
So they're right, solitary, and I had a lot of friends around me, which made studying a lot easier, because you're going to a classroom where you see your friends, and it keeps you motivated to keep up with the work and complete your exams, because you don't want to be the only one who has to redo a whole course and trail to your friends. So that's a very important thing to me, that I had friends around me and people that had the same problems with the same courses or the same subjects. That made it a lot easier. Everything I understood from mathematics in high school was just basically just calculations and computations, and then I did pure mathematics, and it was none of that. And if I look back, I would have probably made a different choice, do something more applied, but it brought me to where I am right now, and that's good enough for me. So it worked out in the end. I'm luckily.
I see. Did you forget everything you learned in the bachelor after working for a while? I'm kind of afraid, because I'm now going into teaching myself, and I really loved studying mathematics in the bachelor and masters, and I'm sort of afraid to let go of that.
Yeah, you do forget everything. But that's just because but that's just because you're not keeping up with the content anymore. And if you made me do any exam after the first year, so from second year or third year, then I would definitely fail, because I did that during my bachelor as well. So that hasn't changed at all.
But that's the case for everybody, right?
Yeah, probably. But then I haven't worked on my knowledge in 5-6 years. So you forget everything. You know some basic concepts. I still know some basic concepts, but you shouldn't ask me anything about that anymore. If you really want to keep up with anything, you really want to keep understanding everything, you need to keep up with everything. That goes for any course in high school or in university, not necessarily mathematics. So sorry to say that you will forget the mathematics you...
No, that's fine. I think that's to be expected. And after all, there's more to this world than mathematics.
Barely.
And to that point, I'm also wondering, what do you like to do outside your job?
So
as in hobbies?
Okay. I try to do a lot of sports. I'm currently training for High Rocks, and do running. I do football, mostly forgetting that, but that's my main hobby. And then there's just meeting up with friends, which are part of my football team as well. So it's just meeting with colleagues outside of work as well. Like I've been there for so long that you get to know them personally, and they become friends, and you go to each other's birthdays or baby showers and stuff like that, because life goes on. And then there's that. So really, my social life is kind of interfered with my work life, which is a good thing in my opinion.
And do you play games or just training with football?
With football, yeah. Also games. Well, not right now, of course, because it's the summer break. But normally it's a weekly game, and then a training or two during the week.
Cool. Which position do you play? Sorry, I've been playing myself.
Oh, nice. No, I'm an attacker, mostly on the wing, but also wherever they need me.
That's put some pressure on you to score goals. I'm not sure in how competitive your team is, but it might be competitive. And in that case,
Well, yeah. I think I did my job this year, but I'm not the one to judge. And I think we had a fun year, and we did all right. And I'm just happy to be a part. Really sound like a professional football player
yes,
right
you
now.
do.
I'm happy to do my job and to play here, and the fans are great.
You play for Heerenveen, right? I see the shirt behind you.
No,
Yeah.
I wish, and I would have definitely quit my teaching job. Yeah, no, I'm just a fan of Heerenveen, which is for the listeners. There's a shirt hanging behind me on camera. Yeah, I'm a Heerenveen fan, and my students know that, and they make sure that I know when they lose. So not too much emphasis on that there, please.
I see. This was a nice sidetrack, but we
Yeah.
keep coming back to math every time in this podcast.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so the last question before we dive into teaching, although we sort of did already, is why people should be interested in mathematics, which is probably something you have to argue with your students about sometimes.
Yeah, and it's a never-ending argument. There is no good answer, I noticed. I saw your questions you sent me before the episode, and I discussed with my colleagues what would you answer to this question, and they had no idea. So there's no good answer on why you need mathematics. You need to understand the basic concept of numbers to tackle problems, and you have to get a structure for certain problems in your life that are just too big to solve in one go. So I think my answer would always be because you need to be able to tackle problems also outside of the numbers themselves. But that's it's going to be a very difficult question if someone asks you, what am I going to do with I don't know, normal distribution? Probably nothing, but here we are. Yeah, I'm still teaching, so yeah. Let's just focus on our homework.
Unless you're in specific professions, I guess the normal distribution will mean nothing to you in your
Does not come up.
day-to-day life.
No, and that's all right. But if you want a degree for anything, you need to have a basic understanding of a lot of things that you're never going to use again. And that was the case with my bachelor's and master's as well. Yeah, I'm never using that information again, but I need it to do what I like to do. I did a lot of economics in high school, but I'm never using that anymore. Yeah, that's life, but you don't know that at the time when you're following the subject.
But it's also true that you never know, right? Because maybe you need to do accounting, or maybe you need to understand what the rate of your mortgage is and why it's going up or down. And then suddenly some of these things become useful.
Absolutely. But that's very difficult for a student to understand, especially if they're 13-year-old and you start talking about your mortgage, then they have no idea.
That's true. But also getting acquainted with logic is something that you don't realize you're using probably ever, even though that has been crucial perhaps in your growth or in understanding or in your analytic skills over some problems or whatever you're doing in your job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And besides that, it's also just work ethics. You need to do this and you need to complete it. Otherwise, there's consequences. And that goes for any job, but you start to understand that in high school, in my opinion. That's the basics for any job.
Can I take a step back and go back to your experience at university? There is still a question that is lingering in my mind. You mentioned that in mathematics, there is at least a stereotype that people are more solitary. And that you had the lack of having a nice group of friends to study with. And but you also studied in education master, right? And so I'm really curious about the difference in the atmosphere between the mathematics and the education master, and also the difference approach, if there is a different approach in the way you were learning and studying in mathematics and learning and studying the education master.
I was lucky to have friends that motivate me to go to uni and to improve myself in mathematics, because I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did now with the group of close friends. And also I had a group of close friends in the master for education, but the whole approach is different, because for mathematics you're focusing on your next exam and you need to understand it, and you don't really know what they're going to ask you, but you need to have a basic understanding of everything. And then with the master, it's a lot of writing essays and reports and getting feedback from your peers, giving feedback to yourself, describing what you can improve and how you can improve, which is a very useful skill, but it felt really repetitive in a lot of ways, because basically every course in the master is asking you to get feedback and receive feedback and give feedback, which is necessary, but also getting very boring very quickly. And then with mathematics, I was studying something that I really enjoyed, or was trying to enjoy. And it was just a challenge. And then with the masters, I was really, I needed to complete it. I just wanted to teach in the end. I was done with all the paperwork and all the essays and reports, and I just wanted to be teaching. So then I was basically completing it to have it completed.
But that's because you had this strong drive. And you were mentioning that you went to teaching even though you didn't like presenting things and speaking in front of an audience, right? I'm really curious when this switched. Or you still maybe don't like it, I don't know.
Well, I do occasionally get nervous, not during the year, but in the start of the year, definitely. When you have new classes and new students and unfamiliar faces, then you don't know what's expected of you and what they expect. You need to get to know them, and once you get the hang of that and you see how the students behave, and then I can relax a little bit more. But then if I would be presenting in front of a group of parents on a parent meeting, then that would be thrilling and exciting as well. It would make me nervous because you don't know the parents that well, and they will look at you in a very different way than the students will look at you. So I'm not sure when it changed. I think it's experience. And a thing for me that really helped is that I'm not graded anymore for my presentation, because that really made me nervous. That's something I still don't like. If there's someone in the back just taking notes and saying, "Oh, you should have done this, you should have improved that." That's I'm not a fan of that, and I also don't think that's necessarily the best way to improve teaching.
I certainly recognize that, although this is not teaching. I mean, if I'm speaking now and it's recorded, I know that far more people will listen to it than if I give a bad presentation. And despite that fact, I'm more nervous for a presentation that's graded than for recording a podcast. So
yeah, that's completely understandable. Yeah.
But I'm happy to hear that. Certainly for people that don't like presenting, but still like to have or form a connection with children or almost adults.
Yeah.
So going back to your teaching experience, what do you like most about being a teacher? Big question.
Right now, it's definitely the students, because I think I'm enjoying all of my classes, and also the time in between classes where you just have an interaction with any kid. It's always fun, and I really value that. But I also feel very valued by them, which is definitely important as a teacher, because you're constantly judged, especially with those kids that just hit puberty. They have an opinion on everything, even though they don't really know anything. But that's really fun, and I enjoy that a lot. What has kept me in teaching, or at this school specifically, that's 100% my colleagues. And I've had the same colleagues since I started, and I value them a lot, because they were my supervisors for my internship as well, some of them. And they knew how I could improve, and I wanted to improve, and I wanted to stay there because I could improve there. And now they're really close friends of mine, and whenever I have a problem, whether it's a lesson problem or a personal problem, I can approach them, and they, we do stuff outside of school, activities, sports, but also just dinners together, and other things that are part of your personal life. You laugh together, you cry together, basically. But that's definitely the reason why I wanted to stay here, and why I still want to stay here, because I think any job will have fun students, but not every job will have fun colleagues, and that's something I definitely do have right now.
Great.
And that's what makes the job a lot easier.
So I'm wondering then, I suppose it was easy for you at your school to be open about not knowing certain things, how to start a lesson, how to get the kids quiet if they're feeling uproarious or anything like that. How do you get this atmosphere at the school, or how do you have this atmosphere, facilitate this atmosphere of being open with one another about difficulties?
Well, students need to be seen and need to feel valued, and feel listened to. So I really just try to do my best when it comes to that. And then after all that is right and they have their minds in the right place, then teaching and learning happens. And how I do that, I don't know. It kind of just occurs. It happens. Maybe my colleagues would know the answer, but if I had an intern right now and they would ask me, oh, how do you do this or that? I don't have an answer. That's experience, I guess, even though that's just 3 years for me. But it's it's definitely very important to be part of the school. And the longer you're part of the school, the more well-known you get. And the easier it gets to teach, because they know, oh, that's this teacher and he or she teaches like that, and that's going to be okay. You just need to listen to it. Yeah, it's basically being well-known. It takes time. Yeah.
Do you think that everyone who wants to be a teacher could become a good teacher?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
You don't need to know the answer, of course, but we could talk about
I
it.
think with a lot of good coaching and a lot of effort, everyone could be a teacher. But for some people, it's definitely more natural to be a teacher or to be in front of a group than for others. But then also we have great teachers that do the administrative work or do like the side jobs to teaching that are definitely necessary, but you can't do both at the same time, so they will teach less but do the administrative jobs. So there's talents and aspects in every part of school, and it's about finding the right place basically for yourself. I'm also sure there are people that just shouldn't become a teacher even if they really want to, because they will have a lot of problems with certain groups or certain ages, certain levels. So there's probably a right place for everyone in teaching in any age. You can always find a good match, but you can't have a match that fits all.
No, I understand, and it's a difficult question, even more so because I ask what a good teacher. I mean, the question what a good teacher is also not evident. And we talked a little bit about this, but what do you think a good teacher is like, or what do you try to be as a teacher?
Well, you need to be good with all ages. You need to listen to your students. You don't need to solve their problems, but you need to listen to their problems. And I think they should feel, like I said, feel seen, feel valued. But in the end, it is about the mathematics, because we're not there to have a tea party every day. Though it happens occasionally. But you need to bring your topics across, and there's the balance that you need to find in the lesson. Sometimes there's 5 minutes of chatting and then 40 minutes of work. Sometimes it's 15 and 30, and sometimes it's just 45 and 0. But it depends on so many things, and so there's so many factors that could influence a lesson. I mean, you can't predict what's going to happen in any lesson, even if you've made the perfect lesson schedule, something will happen and you've lost your lesson and you need to improvise, which is definitely the biggest part of my job, is just improvisation and dealing with the stuff that happens in classrooms, and that's just stuff you can't.
And how do you make sure that the student keep being motivated? I imagine that when you are in high school, not all the students would care about mathematics, right? So
most of them don't.
Yeah, at some point you need to find a way to attract their attention and keep them motivated to do to stay in class and somehow be present there, because you said it already, at some point you need to do it because you need to do it, and there is an evaluation in the end, and this is needed to finish school. But you also said that it is part of your job to listen to the student and make them available and present at the lesson. So I'm really curious about in which ways you motivate them to be there with you.
Well, I think I'm just being me, and that's probably the best way to describe it. Just this week, I had a student tell me, "Yeah, I don't really like mathematics, but I don't mind going to your lessons because it's still fun to be there." And I think that every lesson should be like that, and ideally every lesson should be like that. You create a sort of friendship with your students if you have them for multiple years, if you bring them to the exam, and if they pass their exam, and you're working together on on something, which is completing mathematics in my case. If you have them for long enough, you create this bond that makes them want to be in your lessons and want to be part of it, and then they will feel valued and I will feel valued. Because if everybody drops out of my lesson, I'll be there in my own, and that's gonna be a very lonely lesson. But it's this, yeah, it's me being me, I guess. And again, you need to ask my colleagues or my students what makes me me.
That's a good idea. We should invite them all to actually leave a comment to
They
this
will
episode
love
to hear what they have to say about this. So please invite them to listen to the episode.
Rate
And
my teacher, yes.
We could do
Spotify,
that
the
next time.
comments are free, so you can just go and comment on what makes Maarten a very good lecturer.
That I am really curious and also really scared to the reactions, because that could be either way.
Don't worry, we can censor the comments.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Just send me the positive ones.
But switching then from positive to negative, what is the biggest challenge that you find or the biggest challenges that you find in your job?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge would be balancing everything, especially this month. We started this month with exams, so it's a very stressful period for everyone, for teachers and students as well, and also not only for the students who take the exams, but also for the brothers and sisters and friends that are in the lower levels or the lower ages. And it's always very busy, and that's the biggest problem. There's never enough time. I don't have kids, so that's not any of my concern yet, but I can't imagine doing my job full time while also needing to be part of a family and having young children. That's going to be impossible. So there's no way you can have a combination of having a family and being part of a family and working as a full time as a teacher. I cannot imagine that would go well. Either slacking the teaching or slacking your family, and I don't know which is worse. We need 8 days in a week, basically.
What are you balancing then? What are the tasks you're balancing, and what would you like to do less maybe of?
Well, I don't mind doing any task, so I don't need to do anything less. It's just that you right now, especially this month, you can't have anything extra. So you need to create time and schedule your podcast meetings weeks in advance, because otherwise you're going to be booked. Yeah, the things I'm doing are necessary things, and I signed up for that at the beginning of the year. I knew it was going to be like this, but then still, you're struggling with all the time. There's not enough time to complete everything. The good thing is that I don't have to teach right now, so I don't need to prepare the lessons, which takes a lot of time.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons this podcast came into existence is that the student had a very narrow view of what we do as lecturers and professors at the university. So what are the various aspects of our job besides just teaching, and even in teaching what actually it entails, like the whole preparation of lectures, homeworks, the grading and whatnot. And I'm really curious. I mean, I know you have a very busy schedule, because for this episode, we have contacted 5 different teachers for the past 9 months, and it has been really, really hard to find the time that worked for everybody. And even today, we were supposed to be 4, and we ended up being 3. So yeah. I know you're doing a lot of things, and you have a massive responsibility. I really admire teachers, especially when you are at school and high school, because you are forming and growing the students. And so I can imagine that there is a whole lot coming with your job. And I think it would be very interesting, both for our students interested in becoming teachers, but also for students themselves to understand what their teaching are doing when they are not in class with them. So can you tell us a bit more in detail what like a normal day or a normal week look like for a teacher?
So let's say this last period I was teaching 30 lessons a week, which is definitely a lot. That means you need to have 30 lesson preparations that you need to do at home, or maybe you can do them in between lessons, like in tussenuren.
The
Gap hours, the moments where you're not teaching, but you need to take your breaks regularly. So in between lessons, there's not a lot of time. Then you get home, you need to cook food, and on your phone you get the messages from students. Sir, I don't understand this question. I don't understand that. What do we need to learn for this test? Questions like that, and you can see them piling up while you're having your dinner. Then after dinner, there's just answering those. There's preparing the lessons. There's preparing tests if needed. There's replying to emails from parents, from colleagues, whoever is emailing me. because that's also part of the job as a teacher. At least my high school, almost everyone is also a mentor. The students will come to you with your problems, but yeah, you need to solve those, as well as the parents that approach you because you're the spokesperson for the school, basically, for that group. And then it can take up your whole evening if you do not create free time. But then also that comes with scheduling. I'm trying not to work after 9, just to have some free time before I go to bed, and then I wake up at 6:30 in the morning, and then I get ready to go to school again and do the whole cycle again. That's and then it's not that I'm teaching or I'm working every evening, but it does take a lot of time outside of school as well. I'm definitely not finished at 5 in a normal day. My lessons can finish at 3:30. This period, that was the latest I was teaching, and then clean the classroom, finish some quick administrative things before going home. Yeah, and then the whole process is again and again and again. And then the closer we got to the exams, the more stressful it got and the more questions you receive, because students don't want to fail, obviously. So it's a choice. I'm aware that I choose to work in evenings, but then again, 8 days a week would have been nice. Just an extra day to finish everything else that I would normally do during the evenings.
Yeah, I'm wondering because I don't recall having the opportunity to message our teachers when they are at home. Is this something you do and colleagues don't? How is this handled at your school?
Well, we work with Microsoft Teams, where students can always chat with us, and we don't need to reply, but it's kind of meant as a way of communication between students and teachers. It's for announcements as well, so for whole groups. And that's the new-ish thing in teaching, where you're basically approachable at every hour. Now I choose to have Microsoft Teams on my phone, so I also get the messages on my phone, which makes it easier to reply, but it also means that I constantly have a look at my phone to see if I have new messages, and especially this week is test week, so I haven't checked, but I can imagine that I have multiple questions lined up for after this interview, and then I can answer those.
It's a very nice thing. It's impressive because I can see that it can really eat a lot of your time. I had approachable teachers, but I never had teachers that were so approachable that I could even text them questions and so on. And I can think of moments where I was very confused and very much all over the place to figure out what we needed to do, and this would have been very, very helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's also kind of my ideology that I think a teacher should be approachable, and it has its benefits, but it means that you see everything constantly, and there's not really a moment where you can just check out and do something for yourself, because every time you look at your phone you have new messages or new emails, and you might need to reply to those. But I think a good teacher is approachable, and also it makes it easier for students to understand the subject you teach, try to help them in the best way, though online is not really the best way. I would much rather have the students approach me in my lessons or outside of my lessons, but at school at least, because then I have a whole whiteboard with me to explain everything, and I can use the computer to explain anything more clearly. But they don't do that, and we talked about this before, but that's probably also a change of the times. Students are more scared to ask questions in a way that they think people or me or classmates might think they're stupid, which is never the case, because they're all there at the same level, so no one is smarter or more stupid than anyone else in the room. But they still have that impression, and that's something I notice in my job, in my day-to-day life.
I can imagine then how important it is to have this other forum where you can ask your questions.
Yeah.
And even privately then? Or just in the group?
No, there's private
okay.
chats as well. Yeah, they can message in a group, but no one ever does that because why would you bother 28 other students while you can just do it personally? And that would normally mean that you get the same question 4 times. Yeah, that happens. But then you just explain it again in the next lesson. You adapt.
I see. And I'm also wondering about the teachers, your colleagues. How many mathematics teachers are there at your school, including you?
So we have a whole big campus basically, and then there's separate buildings which have different levels. And at the building where I work, there's 6 mathematics teachers, where one has a dual job basically. And we have all the mathematics classrooms close together, so you see each other all the time, and you're always, you know, waving at each other when you pass by their classroom, because we have these big windows, so you know, you look in and out of the classrooms. And it's an advantage to have a small group, because it's really easy to work together, because you know, there's only 5 of you, so you need to get it done between the 5 of you. But then there's also, everyone is making a lot of hours, because everyone is doing the same thing. Goes for, like, we did this computation a couple of years ago where we found out that for example, English section had like double the amount of teachers for the same hours. It was including interns and people who were working part-time, but then you have twice as many teachers, which was insane to realize that you're doing basically the same job, the same hours, but then with half the people.
It's insane. I recall, if we talk about stereotypical math teachers, I recall in my bachelor that we studied a paper in which children had made drawings of math teachers, or what they think math teachers are, before the high school, and they were always angry old men.
Yeah, with the checkered shirts and
Yes.
glasses. Yeah, I know that
Stinking
picture.
breath, coffee breath. Is this true? What's the demographic like?
No, we have so there are 3 male teachers and 2 female teachers, and none of them look like the picture we described, which is good. Yeah, there's also a way to make mathematics more fun if they can associate with the teachers. If the students can associate with the teachers, then that's an advantage for everyone. But there's one guy around his 40s. He has kids that are primary school age. There's 2 people, me and a colleague, who are basically between 20 and 30. There's one woman who is just above 30, and then we have one colleague who is I have actually no idea how old she is, but she's definitely the oldest of the group. I think she's approaching 60, but she might have been past that.
Let's say 50 to be safe. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like between 50 and 60 probably, but I have no idea. I just realized I don't know how old she is. No.
I guess 50 is fine if she's listening.
Yeah, let's be safe, yeah.
And then it turns out she's 41.
Yeah, then I have some explaining to do. At least this probably comes out in the summer holidays, so yeah, maybe she's thinking about that after the summer holidays.
But I'm curious, so what do you know what your students think when they arrive in class, especially the first year? So they arrive to math class, do you know what they expect, and then before they see you or one of your colleagues?
No, I don't know. I would imagine, well, if they've a brother or sister in school, then they know who we are, and that's almost always an advantage. But for the kids that have no idea, I have no clue what they think. But I always think that we make a really fun and happy impression, because I know that the students who have been in school for multiple years, they know that we are a very good group of friends basically, who are working together in a very happy and productive way, and they say that they notice that, they discuss that among themselves as well, where we just, you know, enter each other's classroom and make jokes and then, you know, have fun together, which is what learning should be. Learning should be fun, and that's definitely something that we can get across between the 5 of us, but also outside of the mathematics compartment. There's a lot of colleagues that I have a lot of fun with outside of the lessons and during the lessons as well, which is, you know, what I want to get across, that it should be fun to be in school and it should be fun to learn, and I need my colleagues to help me with that.
Which is also a way to break all these stereotypes and show them that we are all human beings in the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are getting close to the end of the episode, but I would still like to ask you a couple of questions, more actually on the subject. I know that mathematics in school and mathematics at university is different. We have discussed this many times, but I only have experience of mathematics in high school in Italy, so I'm really curious to understand what kind of mathematics you teach. You said you teach at various different levels. Is there a difference between the various mathematics you teach? What kind of topic are covered in school? So
the first 3 years is basically anything that can be statistical, algebraic, or something calculus-like. And then after that, we have basically 2 tracks. And now I'm talking about the highest level of highest levels of high school. We have 2 tracks. One's a statistical track, and the other one is the more algebraic So we have a statistics track and an algebraic track. We call the wiskunde A is the statistics track and wiskunde B is the algebraic track. And they are both preparing the students for a certain field in which they want to work later. Now with the algebraic track, you can basically do any studies that you would want to do, and with the statistical track you are really leaning towards the economy side of the studies, or maybe arts or rights, or the less number based studies basically. And then with the algebraic track it's more physics, science, mathematics, that's those type of studies.
Oh, that's very surprising. So the type of track you choose actually steers the type of university you can go to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Or the studies you can choose. Yeah. There's the limitations for certain studies that you need to have followed wiskunde base or the algebraic track, otherwise you cannot be part of that study.
Yeah, I guess the wiskunde A is more geared towards gamma studies, like history, aardrijkskunde is called geography, and economy. And then indeed, wiskunde B is more towards the beta studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes as a really big surprise because, my experience is just with Italy, and in Italy it's all together. So mathematics, you just start with Euclidean geometry, a bit of calculus, and then you go on with calculus and differential analytical geometry. I mean, volumes of solids and things like that.
Yeah.
And this is in parallel with history, with philosophy, with languages, and so on. And no matter what you study, then you decide what you want to do. So if there are schools that have a bit more maths and physics, there are others that are more on the languages and so on. There are these differences, but you can pretty much decide after, okay, I've studied the English and Spanish and German and other languages, but I still want to study maths in university. And do whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that, because I'm a mentor for the 15-year-olds, and they need to during the year they need to pick which courses they will choose, and some of them are just way too young. They have no idea what they want to do, but there's no option to just do a little bit of everything. There's the broadest cluster of courses that they can follow, but then that's also a very tough one. I'm not a big fan of that necessarily, because it's also hollowing out the whole program of high school, and that's not necessarily a good sign, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine that the choice is hard, especially at that age when you don't yet know what. I mean, even at 20, you don't know what you like, right? Yeah. So exactly. It's tough. How do you help them figure it out?
Well, that's not really my job. I can just have a discussion with them, of course, but then we also have someone who is really guiding them with tests and with visiting the open days and for various studies. And then it's just, for me as a teacher, my job is just to see if this girl wants to pick the algebraic track. Is that suited for her? Do I think it's suited for her? For this other student, he wants to follow the statistical track. Am I okay with that? It's not that I can block it or something, but I do give my advice to them, but they can always just disagree with me. But it's also, picking your courses also means that most of them are just running away from the courses they don't like, which I think is a bad thing, because you can't do that in real life. After you finish studying, you can't just run away from the things you don't like anymore. You need to deal with that. And it comes with a lot of struggles for teachers, but also for students. And if there was just one program that they need to follow throughout high school, that would have been a lot easier. Actually, I don't know why we have changed that, because I'm not really sure actually if my parents never picked a program like that. Maybe they have as well. That's a good question. I'll ask them that.
Yeah.
It's also something that might change in the future, right? There is always discussion about how to improve the school systems, and different countries have very different systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is more so about the program, and in the moment you have to pick which way you want to go in life, almost at a mere age of 15. But if we then head back towards the mathematics side of things, what theory, although it's not in the exam, would you really love to discuss with your students if you had a free choice?
So I really like logic, and I think that there's one track that we haven't discussed, which is the wiskunde C track, which is a whole different track altogether for basically only students that follow the art program, and it's a more reasoning-based mathematics, I would say. So there's logic in their program as well. And I really like logic, and I really like the notation and stuff like that. And I think that's something everyone can just easily obtain. You can easily obtain that knowledge. But logical reasoning is very useful in real life. And so that would be really, really nice if I could teach that. Yeah, sadly, it's not in the exam. And then there's not anything that I have no time to teach it outside of the regular schedule, regular program. So my students will miss out on that opportunity.
That's a
Unless
pity.
they study mathematics.
That's a beautiful answer, and it's
Yes.
so puzzling. I'm still shocked by the fact that if you want to study history at university, you will study statistics. If you want to study math, you will only study analysis and algebra. And if you're going to be an artist, you will actually study logic.
Yeah.
This is like so puzzling.
That's basically in a nutshell how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you bring it like that, that sounds really, really weird.
And
Yeah, but
for all the
things-
students listening to us, then you know that there is a lot more math than what you're seeing in school. And it can be extremely fun and challenging and weird at time. So
Absolutely.
ask your lecturer what things they like and see if they can suggest you some reading about that.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of books that are just collecting dust on my shelf, but those books would be happy to, be read by you. Although most of them are in English, and yeah.
Well, that's
that
good
might be a
practice.
challenge. Yeah, it's good practice. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're listening to this podcast as well, so that's
Indeed.
good practice as well.
So-
You're already halfway there.
Thank you very much again for coming here and sharing your experience with us. Thanks
Yeah,
so
of course,
much,
welcome.
Anna, for helping us throughout the whole year with the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Of course.
Thank you all for listening. We don't yet know what is going to happen next year or the year after. We hope to be back with you with season 3. But it will be a surprise for all of us. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for being here. And if you like this episode, please share it with your friends.